right, let's get into it. Today we're taking a deep dive into a really tough event, the Station Nightclub fire.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just sticks with you, you know, even though it happened back in 2003.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
We're going to be looking at an article from Investor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's called The Station Nightclub Fire, a tragic night in Rhode Island history.
Right.
And, even though it's been over 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
the lessons from that night are still so important,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to safety and accountability and just how we remember these kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely. It makes you think about, like, what we can learn from these tragedies and how to prevent them from happening again.
For sure. Okay, so to really understand what happened, we need to go back to that night, February 20th, 2003.
Okay.
It was a Thursday, and the Station Nightclub, this was in West Warwick, Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
It was packed.
Really?
People were there to see Great White, the 80s rock band.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Like the energy must have been incredible.
I bet.
But this wasn't some huge arena or anything. It was more of a local spot.
Yeah, I get it. One of those places where you go to see up-and-coming bands or a local favorite.
Exactly. And that's kind of important because that intimacy actually played a role in what happened next.
Oh, I see.
So the band starts playing and everything seems to be going fine,
Right.
But then during the first song, their tour manager sets off these pyrotechnics,
Oh, no.
like the fireworks and stuff.
Yeah. Those are usually for, like, huge outdoor concerts.
Exactly. They were never meant for a small enclosed place like the Station Nightclub.
Oh, wow. That's a recipe for disaster.
It really was. And to make matters worse, the club had this soundproofing foam covering the walls and ceiling.
Oh, right, to absorb the sound. But isn't that stuff, like, super flammable?
That's the thing. It was polyurethane foam.
Polyurethane. That's like...
Yeah, the same stuff they use in furniture cushions.
Oh, wow.
And get this.
What?
The article says it wasn't even properly treated with flame retardant.
Seriously. So it was basically just waiting to go up in flames.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened.
Can't believe it.
So you've got sparks flying from the pyrotechnics,
Right.
landing on this super flammable foam.
Oh, my God.
The whole club went up in flames in, minutes.
Minutes.
Yeah. The article calls it a flash fire. It spread so fast.
It must have been absolutely terrifying. The music's playing, people are having a good time, and then
Yeah.
suddenly...
Flames and thick smoke everywhere.
And what about the smoke? I mean, that must have been...
Oh, it was awful. The heat was so intense, it was melting plastic and wires, releasing all these toxic fumes. The Investor article says a lot of people died from smoke inhalation before the fire even reached them.
That's just... I can't even imagine it all happened so fast.
It did, less than 5 minutes. It's hard to even comprehend how quickly it all went down.
Yeah, 5 minutes. That's barely any time to react, let alone escape.
Exactly. And because of that, so many people didn't have a chance. Over 100 people died that night.
100 people. That's just heartbreaking.
The article talks about one of the victims, Tracy King. He was a bouncer at the club.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, he was really well loved in the community.
It's always the good ones.
Yeah. He died trying to help others get out.
That's incredibly brave. A true hero.
Yeah. And, Tracy's story is just one of many. Every single one of those 100 people represents a family that was shattered, a community forever changed.
It's a reminder that behind the statistics, there are real people with lives and loved ones.
Right. So after this unimaginable loss, everyone was trying to figure out how it could have happened.
Yeah. How could something like this happen in a place where people are supposed to be safe, having fun?
The investigation was massive. And what they found was pretty shocking, honestly. It wasn't just one thing that went wrong.
Oh, so it was like a whole chain of events.
Yeah. It was a series of mistakes and oversights that basically created the perfect conditions for this tragedy.
Like what?
Well, first you have the flammable foam, which was a clear violation of fire codes.
Right, that's a big one.
Then you've got the indoor pyrotechnics, which were completely unauthorized. That was a reckless decision.
Yeah, and then was there anything else?
Yeah, actually, the investigation found that the club was way overcrowded that night. They were over capacity by at least 40 people.
Wow. So even if people wanted to escape, it would have been almost impossible with that many people trying to get out at once.
Exactly. It created a massive bottleneck at the main entrance. And on top of all that, there were questions about whether the club even met basic safety standards.
Like what?
Like, did they have enough exits? Were they clearly marked? Were the fire extinguishers working properly?
Oh, wow. So it sounds like there were multiple points where this tragedy could have been prevented.
Exactly. It was a disaster waiting to happen. So with so many lives lost and so much evidence of negligence,
Yeah.
there had to be some accountability, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Someone had to be held responsible for this.
Right. So legally, what happened?
Well, the owners of the club, the Derderian brothers, they were hit with some serious charges.
What kind of charges?
100 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
Involuntary manslaughter. So,
Right.
like, they didn't mean to kill anyone.
Right. It means that their actions, or in this case, their lack of action, directly led to those deaths. It was reckless and negligent.
That makes sense. And what about the band? Were they held responsible?
The band members themselves weren't charged.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But their tour manager, the one who set off the pyrotechnics,
Yeah.
he was convicted of involuntary manslaughter too.
Wow.
The whole legal battle was really complicated. There were a lot of arguments about who was ultimately responsible,
Yeah.
the people who owned the club or the people who set off the fireworks.
Yeah. It's a really complex issue.
Definitely. It raises a lot of questions about individual responsibility and where we draw the line.
Absolutely. So when we look back at the Station Nightclub fire now, what are the biggest takeaways?
Well, I think one of the most important things is that it really highlighted the importance of fire safety and what happens when those measures fail.
Yeah. You never really think about things like building materials when you're going to a concert.
Yeah.
But this fire showed just how crucial those things are.
Exactly. The article even mentions how there was a huge push for stricter fire codes after this, especially when it came to banning flammable materials like the foam they used in the Station Nightclub.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, it was a major wake-up call for the whole country.
So it wasn't just about the materials themselves,
Yeah.
right? What else changed?
Well, it also made people much more aware of things like crowd management, having clear exit routes, making sure venues have proper emergency plans.
It's a horrible way to learn those lessons, but
Yeah.
it's so important. It makes you think about your own experiences in public spaces.
For sure.
Like, are there enough exits? Are they easy to find? Do I even know what to do in an emergency? It's scary to think about.
It is. And it's something we should all be thinking about, whether we're going to a concert, a club, or even just a crowded restaurant.
Yeah, you're right.
It brings up a question, really. It's something I've thought about a lot.
What's that?
Well, how do we balance the need for entertainment, for having fun and enjoying ourselves with the absolute necessity of safety?
That's a good question.
Right. What's our responsibility as individuals to be aware of our surroundings, to look for those exits, to think about what we do in an emergency?
Yeah. And what about the people in charge? The venue owners,
Ah.
the event organizers?
Exactly. What's their responsibility to make sure those spaces are safe for everyone?
It's not an easy question to answer.
No, it's not. It's a complex issue, but it's one that we all have to think about.
I think the Station Nightclub fire serves as a powerful reminder that a night out shouldn't end in tragedy,
Absolutely.
and that safety should never be an afterthought.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Station Nightclub fire. We really encourage everyone to learn more about what happened and what we can all do to prevent these kinds of tragedies from happening again.
It's a conversation we need to keep having, for sure.
Thanks again for listening.
Thanks.